BlackRock is starting to eye XRP. Here's why. Let's get into this article. We also have Nate Garassi asking the guy who's in charge of BlackRock digital asset, Robbie Mitchnick, about XRP ETFs. Let's get into this. Lots of really cool information here. Let's start here. So the title of this article is BlackRock is watching XRP. Here is the latest. The digital asset landscape is evolving faster than ever, and institutional players are no longer limiting their attention to Bitcoin and Ethereum. Major funds and asset managers are now examining the infrastructure that could power large-scale tokenization and cross-border settlement. Within this shifting environment, signals that BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, is monitoring XRP has drawn scrutiny across the crypto community. Crypto analysts and commentators Smoke recently highlighted BlackRock's growing focus on XRP, sparking conversation across X and industry news channels. His observation underscores a wider trend. Traditional financial giants are broadening their due diligence beyond the market leaders to include networks capable of handling high volume, low-cost transactions such as the XRP ledger. Market observers note that these discussions are no longer speculative chatter, but part of serious fundamental or serious internal evaluations. And he's highlighting this article here. BlackRock brought up the example of the SEC suing Ripple and his executives over their sales of XRP in prior years. Does talk of this, but why file the application now, given the SEC chair Gensler strongly opposes the idea? There is speculation that Gensler realizes that he backed himself into a corner. The SEC largely lost its lawsuit against Ripple, where the SEC argued that Ripple's XRP token is a security. So maybe this is the reason why BlackRock hadn't done it up until then, but they were paying attention to what's going on. He's highlighting that BlackRock brought up that the SEC suing Ripple was a problem during that time. Now that the lawsuit is settled, right? They were monitoring the situation, I think is what he's trying to point out here. Tokenization and the XRPL advantage. BlackRock has already advanced into blockchain tokenization through its multi-billion-dollar Buildle fund designed to explore on-chain representations of real-world assets. If you're watching this on Friday, go back to Thursday's content. I cover all of this and more specific videos just on this information. If you want a full rundown of what's happening, I got you. Analysts following the firm's blockchain strategy report that the XRP ledger speed, scalability, and regulatory-friendly design make it a natural candidate for institutional pilots. And Ripple's US-backed RLUSD stablecoin live and infrastructure partners like Securitize providing compliant on-ramps, the technical prerequisites for institutional engagement are falling into place. Regulatory climate encourage exploration. The regulatory backdrop is also shifting. We've seen the SEC, the CFTC, the OCC, the Federal Reserve. They are all getting on board with crypto and kind of paving the way for this. But let's get to this post here, right?
Product development. Let me ask you this, and you don't have to comment on the first part. And actually, I don't expect you to comment on the
probably
on the first
won't
part.
Then if you're prefacing it like that.
All right. So I have actually publicly predicted that BlackRock would file for a spot XRP ETF and a spot Solana ETF, which you have not yet done. And again, I'm not expecting you to comment on that at all. But what I will ask you is, how is BlackRock thinking about future product development around crypto-related ETFs? Because you have had these two massive success stories with IBIT and Ether. So certainly that has to have your attention. But what about moving forward?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of factors that go into that decision-making process, obviously. But the biggest driver ultimately is our clients, right? What is the level of investor demand? What is the logic and investment thesis for investors and for our clients around these potential products? What problem are we solving for them? And so when we think about other potential opportunities in this space, obviously we're looking at things like market cap, liquidity, maturity, but also clarity of investment thesis and overall sort of product and portfolio considerations in terms of how clients long-term are going to be able to use products in this space, build the types of portfolio exposures holistically that they want. And so that's a constant evaluation process. It's not a fixed point in time thing, but ultimately that's the kind of process that we deploy.
Okay, really quickly, when interviewing somebody, you probably don't want to lead with, you probably can't answer this, right? If you're trying to get answers about something that is tough to answer, you don't start the conversation with, hey, this might not be something you want to answer, right? Let's just get into it. Just say, hey, what is your intention with XRP and Solana? Have you guys made any progress? What's happening behind the scenes? That's what I would have asked, right? Let him say, ooh, we can't really answer that. But when you start like that, anyway, circling back here, the most important thing he said here is they're waiting for our clients, right? He asked the question. His first response was here.
Attention, but what?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of factors that go into that decision-making process, obviously, but the biggest driver ultimately is our clients.
So the last 6 to 12 months, I've been telling you, if you have an account at BlackRock or if you have an account at a big institution, call them up, send them an email saying, when are you going to have spot XRP products? It is relying on us. The reason BlackRock moved to Bitcoin and Ethereum is because the customers demanded it. They demanded it. And there's some of you out there that have accounts at some of these institutions. Go out and be a part of the solution and help us get into these bigger ecosystems. All right, here's another video here of Robbie Mitchnick, head of global digital assets at BlackRock. Knows everything about XRP. Remember, he used to work at Ripple. Let me play it.
Most people recognize that out of all the developments in the blockchain and digital assets ecosystem, DeFi is potentially the most transformative, right? It's also, in some ways, the furthest afield from being able to kind of have widespread adoption. But unlike, in the early days, permission blockchain use case here or crypto here, there's not one institution in finance who doesn't have some path to being disrupted by DeFi, right? So everything else has been a mix of kind of opportunities and maybe threats. DeFi forces everyone to say, what does this mean for us if this actually happens? So everybody's paying attention. You're just not at the point yet where you've got kind of banks and asset managers.
Yeah. All right, so they've been paying attention for a very long time, and we know Larry Fink understands where these markets are heading. This is a much older clip. I'm just gonna play it because there's new people coming in. So if you hate this clip or you've seen it 100,000 times, just fast forward 22 seconds. I got a ton more stuff I wanna go over outside of BlackRock.
Let me ask you this. Will you do another ETF? How about an XRP ETF? I know you got Ether out there. How about XRP? Can you answer that?
I can't. And you don't want me to.
I do.
Well, I can't.
All right.
When he says you don't want me to, this is always something that I found incredibly interesting. I'm just going to share with you what I think this is, right? For a long time, I always remember, have a hard time remembering this guy's name, but I know he's been anti-XRP for a very long time, right? And he was one of the key people at Fox pretty much talking smack all throughout the lawsuit. Now, Larry Fink saying that specific thing to him, you don't want me to answer? It feels to me like Larry Fink is like, you want me to give you the bad news? That we're going to be working with XRP and Ripple down the line here on solutions. And, at this time, RLUSD wasn't around yet. But I don't know. I'll leave you with that, right? I'll leave you with that.
And you don't want me to.
I do.
Well, I can't.
All right.
I don't know. That's at least what I saw. You tell me what you think. All right, let's cruise. ICE Futures US launches CoinDesk XRP futures contracts on September 22nd, 2025, boosting XRP's liquidity and institutional access. Contract specs from submission size 50,000 CoinDesk XRP benchmark reference rate, denominated in real time every 5 seconds. The tick 25 is 0.0005 points, fine-tuned for precision settlement. Cash settled for average of 5s, rates 3 to 4 p.m. London on last month of the Friday, yada, yada, yada. Anyways, here is kind of the key points of this. Each contract represents $50,000 notional value tied to real-time CoinDesk XRP benchmark reference rate. 6 simulation monthly contracts are available, traded Sunday through Friday, and are cash settled based on average of benchmark rates. Trading has risk management features. It talks about 5,000 spot all month accountability and real-time volatility controls. Clearing and risk management are handled by ICE, Cleared US, and CFTC regulated clearing organizations. So more financial products using XRP. You also had Donald Trump Jr. following Ripple now. Interesting. Okay. All right. We do know that Donald Trump Jr. has had many conversations with BitBoy Crypto about XRP. We know for sure that Donald Trump Jr. understands Ripple and XRP. It's only funny now that maybe people are pointing this out. I think he's known about this for quite some time. What does it mean for us? It could mean nothing, right? It could be a goose egg, but I don't know. Some people are talking about it on X. I thought I'd bring it up here. CME, we've hit our 4-month milestone for XRP futures. The reason for the momentum, demand for trusted regulated crypto products, 6 billion XRP equivalent, 18.3 billion notional volume, 213 million ADV, and almost 400,000 contracts traded. There is a demand for these products and people are using it. XRP, I did a few videos on this several days ago. This is already maxed out. They already have 100% lockup here at 18.8 million. This is really cool. I saw people being able to get 8 to 10%. Just remember, if you're locking up your XRP anywhere, understand all of the risks associated with that. And you could lose all that XRP if something bad happens. So please talk with a financial advisor who understands staking and liquid staking before you continue down this road. I beg you. I've made some mistakes in my past in the crypto space on staking tokens on some platforms, not XRP, but other stuff. And it has not turned out very well. So just want to throw that two bits in. All right, guys, I'll leave that with you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. If you got any value, you can like, you can share, you can leave a comment below. I'll see you next time. I'm so glad to be home. I missed you all. Peace.